He sun burned like a white fire in the sky, dragged himself across the sand, leaving a long trail behind him. His mechanical left arm scraped against the ground. His right hand, still flesh and bone, pulled his body forward one painful reach at a time. The desert of Seven stretched endlessly in every direction. There was nothing but sand, rocks, and heat. No trees, no water, no life, just a dying man crawling toward nothing. His internal systems flashed warnings across his vision. His cybernetic eye displayed numbers in red, power at 11%, synthetic lungs operating at minimal capacity, neural implant stability falling, estimated time until complete shutdown, 17 hours and 42 minutes. He had been crawling for 2 days. His body was 60% machine now. The accident at the mining station 3 years ago had destroyed most of his original form. His left arm was fully mechanical, made of black metal and wires. His lungs were synthetic filters that processed air for his remaining organic parts. His damaged brain needed the neural implant just to function. Without power, without maintenance, he would simply stop. And now his own crew had left him to die. Remembered their faces. He remembered Supervisor looking down at him with cold eyes. The raider attack had come fast and hard. Workers were injured, trapped under fallen equipment, had refused to leave them. He had stayed behind to free a young woman whose legs were pinned under metal beams. When he finally got her free and carried her to the extraction point, the ship was already lifting off. Stood at the closing door and simply watched. No anger on his face, no guilt, just a businessman cutting his losses. They left him. They left him because a damaged cyborg was worth less than the fuel it would cost to wait 5 more minutes. Stopped crawling. He lay face down in the sand and breathed hard. His synthetic lungs wheezed. The heat from the ground burned his cheek. He thought about giving up. It would be so easy. Just close his eyes and let the shutdown happen. No more pain, no more struggle, no more being treated like a broken machine instead of a man. But then he saw her face, his wife, her smile, her laugh, the way she used to touch his face in the morning and tell him he worried too much. She had died in the same accident that made him a cyborg. The explosion had killed her instantly. Sometimes thought he was the unlucky one, the one who survived. He lived, but as something less than human, a thing of metal and wire and fatting memories. "I am still here," whispered to himself. His voice was rough and dry. "I am still human." He started crawling again. The hours passed slowly. The sun moved across the sky but never seemed to cool. His power dropped to 9%, then 8%. His mechanical arm began to glitch, the fingers twitching without his control. He reached the top of a small dune and looked ahead. What he saw made him stop breathing. A crater, a massive hole in the desert, at least a kilometer wide, and at the center of that crater sat something impossible. A starship. Not a human ship. Not any design had ever seen in 30 years of space travel and engineering work. This vessel was enormous, shaped like a curved blade, with a hull that seemed to shift between silver and blue as he watched. Parts of it were buried in sand, but even damaged and half-hidden, it was beautiful. And it was glowing. Faint light still pulsed along its surface. After all this time buried in the desert, the ship still had power. Laughed. It was a broken, desperate sound. Maybe he was already dying. Maybe his brain was failing and showing him visions. But what choice did he have? Keep crawling into empty desert until his power ran out, or crawl toward the impossible hope sitting in that crater? He chose hope. The slope down into the crater was steep. Half crawled, half slid down the sandy wall. His mechanical arms sparked and complained. His organic parts screamed with exhaustion and thirst, but he kept moving. Up close, the ship was even more amazing. The hull was covered in patterns that might have been writing or decoration. The metal, if it was metal, felt warm under his touch. Not hot from the sun, but warm like a living thing. Found a breach in the hull. A section had been torn open, probably during the crash. The hole was large enough for him to enter. He pulled himself inside and collapsed on the floor of the alien vessel. The interior was dark, but not completely. Soft lights glowed along the walls, casting everything in pale blue. The air was cool and clean, such a relief after the burning desert. Lay there for a long moment, just breathing, letting his synthetic lungs pull in the fresh air. His cybernetic eye began picking up readings, power signatures, life support still functioning, and something else. A faint signal like a heartbeat coming from deeper inside the ship. Did not know what species had built this vessel. He did not know how long it had been here or what had happened to its crew. But he knew one thing with absolute certainty. This ship was his only chance to survive. He pushed himself up onto his hands and knees. His power was down to 7% now. He had maybe 14 hours left. Somewhere in this ancient vessel, there might be technology that could save him, or there might be nothing but dust and ghosts. Either way, was not going to die in the sand like forgotten garbage. He was going to fight for every minute he had left. Because that was what humans did. They fought. They survived. They refused to accept the end until the very last breath. Began crawling deeper into the ship, following the pulse of that strange signal. Behind him, the desert wind blew sand across the breach, slowly covering his trail. Above, the sun continued its slow journey across the sky, uncaring and eternal. But below the sand, in the belly of a ship that had waited 4,000 years, something was about to change. A dying cyborg had found hope. And hope, even the smallest spark of it, could light fires that would burn across the galaxy. Left for dead in the desert, a cyborg survivor finds hope in a fallen starship. Part 2: The Sleeping Giant. The corridors of the alien ship were built for beings much larger than humans, felt like a child exploring a giant's house. The ceilings rose 3 meters above his head. The doorways were wide enough for 4 men to walk side by side. Every surface curved smoothly, with no sharp corners or hard edges. He crawled through the blue-lit darkness, following the signal his cybernetic eye detected. The ship was damaged but not dead. Power still flowed through its systems. Light still glowed. Air still circulated. Whatever had crashed this vessel 4,000 years ago had not destroyed its heart. Its internal display showed 5% power remaining, maybe 10 hours until shutdown. His mechanical arm had stopped glitching, but only because he had disabled several functions to save energy. He was running on emergency reserves, burning through the last of his life force. The signal grew stronger. Entered a large circular room filled with strange equipment. In the center stood a tall pillar of crystal and metal, pulsing with soft white light. Around it, dozens of smaller machines hummed quietly, their purpose unknown. And against the far wall, he saw the pods. There were 12 of them, tall oval containers made of the same silver-blue material as the ship's hull. 11 were dark and cracked, clearly broken long ago, but one still glowed, one still held power, one still showed signs of life. Pulled himself across the floor until he reached the working pod. He pressed his organic hand against its surface. It was warm like the hull outside. Through the semi-transparent material, he could see a shape inside. A body. Not human. The being was tall, perhaps 2.5 meters. Its skin was silver with faint patterns of darker gray, like clouds moving across metal. It had 4 arms, 2 larger ones and 2 smaller ones closer to the chest. Its face was surprisingly human in shape, with 2 eyes, a nose, and a mouth, but the proportions were different. More elegant, more alien. Bioluminescent markings ran across its skin, glowing faintly blue even in stasis. The creature was clearly female, or at least appeared female to human eyes. She wore a suit of some flexible material that covered her body but left her arms and head exposed. She was wounded. Even through the pod's surface could see damage to her lower body. Dark stains on the suit, scarring on the visible skin. Whatever had happened to this ship had hurt her badly. But she was alive. After 4,000 years, she was still alive. Cybernetic eye suddenly filled with static. His neural implant buzzed. Something was trying to connect to his systems. He panicked for a moment, tried to pull away, but then a voice spoke directly into his mind. "Do not be afraid, I mean no harm." The voice was strange, neither male nor female, speaking words that were not sound but pure meaning. Understood it perfectly even though no language was being used. "What are you?" he asked out loud, his voice echoing in the chamber. "I am the ship, or rather I am the intelligence that guides the ship. Your machine parts allow me to communicate with you. This is fortunate." Laughed weakly. "Fortunate, I am dying and you call it fortunate." "You are dying, yes, but you found us. After 4,000 years of silence you found us. This is more than fortunate, this is miraculous." The AI explained quickly. This ship belonged to a species called the. They had traveled the stars when humans were still building pyramids on Earth. They were explorers, scientists, seekers of knowledge, but they had enemies. Something called the Hollow Swarm had hunted them across the galaxy. Machine creatures that consumed organic life, that grew stronger with every civilization they destroyed. They had fought back for centuries, but they were losing. This ship was one of the last, fleeing toward an unexplored region of space, hopping to find safety. Instead, they found this desert world and crashed. "The crew died in the crash or in the years after," the AI said. "Only survived protected by the stasis pod, but she is wounded. The pod has kept her alive, but it cannot heal her." "Why are you telling me this?" asked. "Because I need your help, and because you need mine." The AI, which decided to call, explained further. The ship still had medical technology that could save both but the systems were damaged. Someone needed to repair them manually. Was an engineer. His cybernetic parts allowed him to interface with technology. Together, they might be able to save 2 lives. But there was a problem. The ship's power reserves were limited. There was only enough energy to fully restore one being. Could use the medical systems to recharge his cybernetics and heal his organic damage. He would live, but would remain in stasis until her pod's power failed and then she would die. Or could repair the medical bay and use the power to revive. She might survive, but systems would continue to fail. He would die. "The choice is yours," said. "I cannot make it for you." Looked at the pod, at the alien woman floating inside, the last of her kind, a being whose people had traveled the stars while his ancestors were learning to farm. She had survived 4,000 years waiting for rescue that never came. And now a broken cyborg from a species she had never met held her life in his hands. He thought about what she would say if she were here. She had always been the better person, the kinder soul. She volunteered at medical stations. She donated money to refugee funds. She believed that life, all life, had value. Touch the pod again. How do I wake her up? You would sacrifice yourself for a stranger, for an alien you have never met. She has been alone for 4,000 years, said. That is enough. No one should die alone in the dark. There was a long pause, then spoke again, and this time the AI's voice seemed warmer somehow. I chose correctly when I reached out to you. You are a good being. Perhaps there is another way. Let me show you the medical systems. Together, we may find a solution that saves you both. Smiled despite his exhaustion. Then let us get to work. I have maybe 10 hours left. We should not waste them. He stood up slowly, his damaged body screaming in protest. But he did not listen to the pain. He had a purpose now, a reason to keep fighting. Somewhere in this ancient ship was a way to save 2 broken survivors, and was going to find it. Left for dead in the desert, a cyborg survivor finds hope in a fallen starship. Part 3: 2 broken survivors. The medical bay looked like a place where gods healed the sick. Crystal machines rose from the floor like frozen waterfalls. Light moved through tubes of unknown liquid. The air smelled clean, almost sweet, nothing like the harsh chemical smell of human medical stations. Had spent 6 hours repairing damaged systems. His mechanical arm worked without rest, reconnecting wires, replacing burned components and following instructions. His organic hand shook with exhaustion, but he did not stop. 3% power remaining, maybe 4 hours until shutdown. The medical systems are ready, announced. But I must warn you, may not react well to waking. The last thing she remembers is running from enemies. She may be confused and frightened. I understand, said, wake her. The stasis pod began to open. Gas hissed out as the seal broke. The liquid inside drained away through hidden channels. Slowly, the alien woman named emerged from 4,000 years of sleep. Her eyes opened first. They were large, golden, with pupils that contracted sharply in the light. She saw standing before her, and her reaction was immediate. All 4 arms shot forward. Her 2 larger hands grabbed by the throat and lifted him off the ground. Her smaller hands pressed against his chest, ready to push him away or pull him closer. Her bioluminescent markings flared bright with fear and anger. She spoke in a language did not understand, but her meaning was clear. Who are you? What have you done to me? Spoke to her in her own language. Please, he saved you, he is not an enemy. His golden eyes moved, looking around the room. She saw the damaged equipment. She saw the dark, broken pods where her people had died. She saw the small, strange creature hanging from her hands, his mechanical arm sparking, his organic eye filled with pain but not fear. Slowly, she lowered him to the ground, but she did not release him completely. Her large hands remained on his shoulders, holding him in place. What are you? She asked, translated into meaning that flowed directly into his neural implant. I am human, said, speaking out loud while translated. My name is, I found your ship in the desert. I woke you up. Why? Because you were alone, because you needed help. Stared at him for a long moment. Her golden eyes studied his face, his mechanical arm, his synthetic chest plate visible through his torn clothing. Her smaller hands reached out and touched the metal of his arm. You are machine and flesh together, she said. This is forbidden among my people, an abomination. Smiled tiredly. Among my people it is the only way I survived. I was injured. My body was broken. The machines keep me alive. And you used this broken body to save me, a stranger, an alien. Yes. His grip on his shoulders loosened. Something changed in her expression. Not trust, not yet, but perhaps the beginning of understanding. You are either very foolish or very kind, she said. I cannot decide which. Perhaps both, replied. Over the next several hours they talked. Was weak from stasis and her old wounds, but she refused to rest until she understood what had happened. Filled in many details but wanted to hear from himself. He told her about Earth, about humanity spreading across the stars, about the corporations that controlled the colony worlds and the workers like him who built their empires. He told her about the accident that killed and transformed him into a cyborg. He told her about being left to die in the desert by people who saw him as nothing more than damaged equipment. Listened without interrupting. When he finished, she was quiet for a long time. Your people sound both wonderful and terrible, she finally said. Capable of great cruelty but also great kindness. You are proof of the second. My people are complicated, agreed. Just like yours, I suspect. Nodded slowly, then she began her own story. They had been a proud civilization. They explored, they learned, they built wonders, but they made a mistake. In their search for knowledge, they awakened something ancient and terrible. The hollow swarm, machines that had slept for millions of years, waiting for organic life to evolve again. The swarm did not conquer or negotiate. They simply consumed. Every living world they found, they stripped bare. Every civilization they encountered, they devoured. They fought with everything they had, but it was not enough. "We were not warriors," said sadly. "We were scholars. When the swarm came, we did not know how to fight. We only knew how to run." This ship, the last of a scattered fleet, had fled toward unknown space. They hoped to find a world where the swarm had not reached, a place to hide and rebuild. Instead, they found 7 and crashed. "I am the last," said. "The last in the universe. My people, our culture, our knowledge, everything ends with me." Reached out and touched her arm, his mechanical hand against her silver skin. She did not pull away. "You are not alone anymore," he said, "and perhaps things can still change. Your ship still works. Your knowledge still exists. The swarm may still be out there, but now they face something they have never encountered before." "What is that?" Smiled. "Humans. We are very good at surviving things that should kill us, and we are very bad at knowing when to give up." Studied him again with those golden eyes. Then for the first time she smiled back. It was a small smile, uncertain and fragile, but it was real. "Perhaps there is hope after all," she said. Together, they began working on the medical systems. Knowledge combined with engineering skills allowed them to do what neither could do alone. They found ways to stretch the ship's power, to repair systems that had been damaged for. When they finally finished, there was enough energy to heal them both. Not completely, but enough. Lay on one of the crystal beds while alien technology flowed through his body. His power reserves climbed. His damaged parts were repaired. For the first time in 3 years, he felt almost whole. Beside him, underwent her own healing. The wounds that had plagued her for 4,000 years finally began to close. 2 broken survivors healing together, finding strength in each other. But outside the ship, in the depths of space, something was listening. The repairs had sent signals outward, signals that had not been heard in 4,000 years. And far away, in the darkness between stars, the hollow swarm began to stir. Left for dead in the desert, a cyborg survivor finds hope in a fallen starship. Part 4: The Swarm Awakens. The first warning came 3 days after Woke was outside the ship, setting up solar collectors to gather extra power, when his cybernetic eye detected movement on the horizon. Shapes moved across the sand. They were small at first, distant specks that could have been animals or debris blown by the wind. But as they came closer, saw the truth. They were machines, dozens of them, crawling across the desert like metal insects. Their bodies were made of twisted black metal, with too many legs and too many eyes that glowed red in the sunlight. They moved in perfect formation, spreading out to surround the crashed ship. Ran inside. "We have company." Was in the medical bay, still recovering from her healing. When she saw the images projected on the walls, her silver skin went pale. Her golden eyes widened with a fear that was 4,000 years old. "The swarm," she whispered, "they found us." "They detected the signals we sent during repairs," explained. "These are scouts, forward units sent to investigate." "How many?" asked. 47 units currently visible, more approaching from multiple directions. Estimated total, over 100. Began to shake. Her 4 arms wrapped around herself as memories overwhelmed her. She had seen these creatures before. She had watched them tear through cities. She had heard the screams of her people as the swarm consumed them. "We have to run," she said. "We have to get away. They will destroy us. They will consume everything." Looked at the screens showing the approaching machines. Then he looked at the terror in her eyes. He understood. She had every right to be afraid. The swarm had taken everything from her. But had also lost everything. His wife, his body, his future. He had spent 3 years being treated as less than human, and now the universe had sent machines to finish the job. Something hard formed in his chest. Not anger exactly, something colder, determination. "No," he said. stared at him. What? No more running. I am tired of running. I am tired of being pushed around by things that think they are stronger than me. You do not understand. The swarm cannot be defeated. My people tried for 300 years. We had warships, weapons, armies. We lost everything. Turned to face her fully. His mechanical arm hummed as power flowed through it. His cybernetic eye glowed faintly in the dim light. Your people were not warriors, you said so yourself. You were scholars, scientists. You did not know how to fight. He pointed at his chest. I am human. We have been fighting since we first stood on two legs. War is in our blood. And I was a combat engineer for 12 years before the accident. I know how to kill machines. He walked toward the weapon storage areas had shown him earlier. Can the ship's defenses still work? Some of them, replied. The main cannon is damaged beyond repair, but several smaller weapon systems can be activated. The hull's energy shields can provide limited protection. Good, I need your help. You know this ship better than anyone. Show me everything that can be used as a weapon. Hesitated. The fear was still in her eyes, but something else was there too, something kindled by certainty. She had spent 4,000 years sleeping, hiding from the enemy that destroyed her people. Perhaps it was time to stop hiding. Follow me, she said quietly. They worked through the night, set up defensive positions around the ship, using fallen hull plates as barriers and rigging technology into improvised traps, showed him weapon systems he could never have found alone, coordinated everything, tracking the swarm's movements and directing their efforts. The scouts did not attack immediately. They surrounded the ship and waited, watching, gathering information. More units arrived as the hours passed. By morning, there were over 200 machines circling the crater. Stood at the breach in the hull, looking out at the enemy. His body was fully charged now, his systems running at peak efficiency. In his mechanical hand, he held an energy weapon, modified to work with his cybernetic interface. They are probing our defenses, said, testing for weaknesses. The main assault will come soon. Let them come, replied. The attack began at midday. The swarm units rushed forward in waves, their metal legs churning through the sand. They made no sound, no battle cries, just silent, efficient killing machines advancing on their target. Opened fire. The weapon sent beams of blue energy into the charging machines. Each hit tore through black metal, leaving sparking wreckage. But there were so many of them. For every one he destroyed, 3 more took its place. The shields flickered to life as the first units reached the ship. Energy crackled against energy as the swarm tried to break through, moved from position to position, firing, falling back, firing again. His cybernetic systems pushed beyond safe limits. Warning messages flashed across his vision, but he ignored them. He entered a state he remembered from his military days. Everything became clear and simple. See the enemy, kill the enemy, survive. But even humans had limits. A swarm unit broke through the eastern barrier. Then another. They poured into the breach, climbing over each other in their hunger to reach the organic life inside. Fell back into the ship. His weapon's power cell was nearly empty. His mechanical arm had been damaged by a glancing blow, sparks flying from torn wires. Blood ran from a wound on his organic side where shrapnel had cut him. And then he saw. She stood in the corridor ahead of him, smiling gently. She looked exactly as she had on their wedding day, beautiful in white, her eyes full of love. You are fighting so hard, she said, but you cannot win alone. I know, whispered, but I have to try. You always tried too hard. That is what I loved about you. The vision faded, shook his head, pushing away the confusion. His neural implant was glitching, pulling memories forward at random. He did not have time for this. He turned to face the swarm units entering the ship and raised his damaged weapon for one last stand. But then a new sound filled the air, a high-pitched scream of energy. Blue light exploded past him, cutting through the lead swarm units. Stood behind him, a massive weapon in her two larger hands, another in her smaller hands. Her golden eyes were not filled with fear anymore. They burned with something else entirely. "You will not take anyone else from me," she said. Her voice was hard as steel. "I am done hiding." Together they fought. The cyborg and the alien, standing side by side in the corridor of an ancient ship, holding back the darkness. Four arms moved with deadly grace, firing in multiple directions at once. Covered her blind spots, his military training and cybernetic precision complementing her raw power. The swarm fell. One by one, then in groups, the black machines were destroyed. The survivors finally retreated, dragging their damaged units back across the sand. Silence returned to the desert. Collapsed against the wall, breathing hard. Slid down beside him, her silver skin covered in machine fluid and scorch marks. "We won," said, barely believing it. "We survived," corrected. "That is not the same thing." His voice interrupted them, heavy with concern. "I am detecting a new signal. A swarm harvester ship has entered the system. It will arrive in 12 hours. Closed her eyes, a harvester, the great ships that consumed entire worlds. Against that, their small victory meant nothing. But looked at her and smiled. "Then we have 12 hours to prepare," he said, "and I have an idea." The harvester filled the sky. It descended through the clouds of 7 like a mountain falling from heaven. Its hull was kilometers wide, covered in countless smaller vessels that clung to its surface like parasites. The air itself seemed to grow darker as it approached. Watched it come from the observation deck of the ship. Beside him, stood with all 4 arms clenched into fists. Behind them, systems hummed with activity. "The plan is ready," announced, "but I must ask one more time, are you certain?" Nodded. "Tell me again what we need to do." The plan was simple and terrible. The ship's main weapon was destroyed, but its power core remained intact. That core held enough energy to level a continent. If they could fly the ship directly into the harvester and overload the core, the explosion would destroy both vessels. But someone had to pilot the ship. Someone had to stay behind. "I have transferred all relevant data to the long-range transmitter," said. "The message will broadcast the moment we launch. Every human colony within range will receive information about the hollow swarm, including tactical data on how to fight them. Your people will be warned." Had spent the last 12 hours recording that message. He spoke about everything, the swarm himself. He shared engineering data, weapon designs, and everything could provide about fighting machines. If he was going to die, he would make sure his death meant something. "The escape pod is ready," continued. "It will launch automatically when we begin our approach. We'll be safely away before the explosion." Turned to face. Her golden eyes were wet with tears. "I will not accept this," she said. "You cannot sacrifice yourself for me, not again." "It is not just for you," replied gently. "It is for everyone. The swarm has been spreading through the galaxy for millions of years. Today we tell them that their time is ending. Today a human and a stand together and say no more. But you will die." "I was dying anyway. You found me crawling through the sand with 3% power left. I was already dead. You gave me extra days. Now I choose what to do with them." Reached out and touched his face with one of her smaller hands. Her touch was warm, gentle. "I barely know you," she said, "and yet you are the bravest being I have ever met." Smiled. "I am just a man who got tired of losing people. Today I get to save someone. That is more than I ever expected." The harvester was closer now. Swarm units began launching from its surface, thousands of them, darkening the sky like a metal storm. The ground shook as landing craft touched down in the desert. "It is time," said. Led to the escape pod. It was small, designed for a single passenger. He helped her inside, checking the controls, making sure everything was working. "When you reach human space, find a woman named Song Myra," he said. "She was my sister. Tell her what happened. Tell her I did not die forgotten in the sand." Nodded, tears streaming down her silver cheeks. "I will tell everyone. I will make sure the galaxy remembers." Leaned forward and pressed his forehead against hers, a gesture of connection, of respect, of something that might have been more in a different world, a different time. "Live well," he whispered. "Be happy, have adventures, fall in love, do all the things I never got to do." He stepped back and hit the launch button. Screamed his name, but the pod was already moving. It shot out through the ship's launch bay and arced into the sky, carrying the last away from the battlefield. Watched it go, then he walked to the control room. The ship came to life around him. Engines that had been silent for 4,000 years roared with power. Lights blazed along the hull. The vessel pulled itself from the sand, rising into the air like a giant waking from a long sleep. Swarm units swarmed toward it, but the shields held. Pushed the engines harder, climbing toward the harvester. The massive ship tried to turn to escape, but it was too slow, too confident in its own power. "Power core overload initiated," said. "Explosion in 3 minutes." His hands moved across the controls. He was not a pilot, but guided him, showing him what to do. Together, they flew toward the heart of the enemy. The harvester opened fire. Massive weapons tore into the ship, ripping holes in the hull, shattering systems. Was thrown against his restraints. Blood filled his mouth. His mechanical arm stopped working entirely. But they kept flying. 2 minutes, said. The AI's voice was calm. "I want you to know something. In 4,000 years of isolation, I never thought I would feel anything again. But knowing you these past days has been an honor. You have reminded me why I valued organic life so much." "Thank you," replied, "for everything." 1 minute. The ship plunged into the harvester's main hangar. Metal screamed against metal. Fire and debris exploded in all directions. His body was broken, his systems failing, but he held on. He had to see this through. In his final moments, he saw again. She stood before him in the chaos, her hand extended, her smile bright and warm. "You did well," she said. "I am so proud of you." Reach for her hand. "I missed you." "I know, but you did not waste the time we had apart. You helped people. You saved lives. You were everything I always knew you could be." "Is it over now?" Smiled even brighter. "No, my love, for you it is just beginning." The power core exploded. A sun was born in the sky above 7. Light filled the world, beautiful and terrible. The harvester was consumed, vaporized, scattered into atoms across the desert. Thousands of swarm units died in an instant. The signal of their destruction echoed across space. And somewhere in the darkness between stars, the hollow swarm felt something they had not felt in millions of years. Fear. 6 months later, stood before the United Human Council on Earth. The Great Hall was filled with representatives from every human colony, every faction, every world. All of them watched as an alien woman spoke about the man who had saved her. "Was left for dead," said. "His own people abandoned him. They saw him as broken, worthless, a machine pretending to be human, but they were wrong." She looked out at the sea of faces, human faces, so different from her own and yet so familiar now. "He was the most human being I have ever known. He showed me that kindness can exist even in the darkest places. He taught me that courage is not the absence of fear, but the choice to fight anyway. He gave his life so that strangers he would never meet might survive." The message had recorded played on every screen in the hall. His voice filled the room, calm and steady, explaining everything about the swarm, how to fight them, how to win. "The hollow swarm is coming," continued. "They have consumed countless civilizations. They thought they were unstoppable, but they were wrong about that too." She raised her head high. They never faced humans before. 1 year later, returned to 7. The desert was the same, endless and empty, burning under the white sun. But at the center of the great crater, something new stood. A memorial, simple stone, carved with human and symbols together. A place where two species had met and changed everything. Knelt before the stone and touched the engraved words. He refused to die quietly. She smiled through her tears. "They are building ships," she whispered. "Warships, hundreds of them. Your message woke them up. Humans from every colony are joining together. They are calling it the Initiative." The wind blew sand across the memorial, but the words remained clear. "You were just one man, one broken cyborg crawling through the sand, and you changed everything." Stood and looked up at the sky. Somewhere out there, the swarm was gathering. The greatest battle in galactic history was coming. But humanity was ready, and they were not alone. In the endless desert, the wind carried a message, a whisper of hope, a promise that the fire would never die. Because that was what humans did. They fought, they survived, they refused to accept the end. And now the whole galaxy would learn what that meant.